Welcome into the Inquirer podcast. It is Jeremy Werner, Derek Piper live at State Farm Center. And everyone, you can take a deep breath. Relief at the State Farm Center here as Illinois ends its ugly three-game skid with a feel-good. Yes, I think it felt good for a lot of Illini fans. 81-61 rout of Iowa. By the way, in that rivalry, Illinois has now won 8 of their last 9 against the Hawkeyes. But Tomislav, big game, 22 points and 5 assists against an undersized, undermanned Iowa team in the front court. Colin Boswell, 15 points, 7 assists, one of his best games in a while. And Will Riley and Trey White, both in the starting lineup tonight in double figures. The 8th starting lineup in 14 games gave Illinois a spark in this one. And Derek, Illinois needed it. They got it. They're going to be an NCAA tournament team. Some relief and just a little bit of a break from what has been an awful 10 days for this team. We'll see if they can put this together and string some wins together to give you real faith going into the tournament. But they're going to be in the tournament. They're going to have a chance to dance. So huge win tonight.
Big time. Had to have it, like you said. And you credit the team for the response. I wondered where they were going to be at mentally after that big of a deficit, losing to Duke that way, really back-to-back 20-plus point losses when you factor in Wisconsin as well. So just wondered where the leadership would be, where the heart would be, would they have the fight that you would hope that they would have, the pride to come out here and be able to battle, and they did. And I think we saw that very early defensively and what they were able to do and some of the loose ball efforts. I thought KJ on the glass was great, and just the physicality defensively to the point where Fran didn't want to comment on how they were able to slow down Dix and Sanford because he felt like maybe they were getting hounded and fouled a little bit too much. But that's a breath of fresh air, I think, for what we saw against Duke and some of these recent opponents who have just had far too easy a time getting comfortable and being able to score. So that was something that I really like to see as well. And you don't take for granted the opportunity to just smoke a rival, right? To take him behind the woodshed and just slap him with a 20-point loss. And Iowa's having a rough season, but we do know they can score. And but you were able to get that one. So I'm sure Illini fans enjoy beating Iowa as they always do by a big margin. And yeah, going to the tournament, which we can put to bed the worst case scenario, the just complete destruction, ground falls beneath you, whatever, all that stuff can at least be put to bed. This team will dance and have a chance. Now, will they be a dangerous team? Will they be a team that can string something together? Remains to be seen. And how they respond from this and build on it is the key now. But at least they'll have that opportunity, because that would be as disastrous a finish to a season as I can remember. When you go from being top 10 in the net through the new year and like, hey, are they a 2 or a 3, and then don't make the tournament, like that would have been unbelievable. And glad we don't have to deal with that.
Yeah, the one thing, and great comment here from Illinois High School Hoop Stars on our live YouTube channel. Appreciate all you guys for joining us. It says, beat Missouri, Indiana, and Iowa. How bad can it be this year? So rivalry games, they're doing pretty well in. We've talked about Indiana is a rival, I think, for Illinois fans. They feel that way. But yeah, like the UCLA game was a really good win, right? You stopped a 7-game win streak for that team, but the ending just didn't make it feel great. Like it'd been 17 days since you feel like you felt great about a 40-minute effort for Illinois, right? Like it's been a while since that Minnesota game. So, or 17 days. So like it had been a while. Now it's Minnesota, it's Iowa, 2 of the worst teams in the Big Ten, but they executed. And Derek, we talk about offensively, Tomislav was way too much for this team to handle Iowa without Owen Freeman. And I love that Illinois, really used him well, and he was confident. He was the most confident we've seen from Tommy, who had 21 points the previous 3 games, but had 22 tonight. We'll dive into some of the offensive aggression we saw to the hoop, but I was most impressed defensively. I looked at you, early into this game, and I said, this looks like the most connected this team has been defensively in quite some time. And we could talk about making shots, how important that is, but you don't have a chance if you don't defend anybody. And Michigan State going on the run they did to end that game. I know Wisconsin's great, but they scored 95 points. I know Duke is great, but they scored 110 points. There's got to be better effort. There's got to be more bite on that end. And again, Iowa has something to do with this, but that's a good offensive team, right? And I thought what Kasper Sakashonis did on Josh Dix, only 11 points for him, and some of that came late. What Colin Boswell did on Peyton Sanford, holding them to 7 points tonight, like that's one of the best scorers in the Big Ten, one of the best shooters. But we learned after the game, Illinois made some changes, and we saw it a little bit on the court, but They confirmed it. They were hedging a little bit more. Tomislav Ivisic hedging those screens, gave the players a little bit more time really to get into people and chase those guys, Derek. So what did you see? What was the impact of hedging a little bit more and not just sitting in that drop coverage?
I think with a little bit more of an aggressive play style, you're not playing as passive, sitting in that drop, and just maybe gives them, in terms of just the runway, to be a little bit more feisty and physical. And I like the fact that, especially against a matchup, I think that was something that fit this game, is the fact that Josh Dix is a really, really good mid-range shooter. Peyton Sanford can come off screens and hit the pull-up as well. So not allowing those guys to just come off of those screens and see open space, to see the ability to get to their spots. That's something that far too many times has happened against Illinois, is just guys getting way too comfortable. We've talked about defenders, even as good as Kylan is, chasing from behind because of the style that Illinois is playing defensively, and Tommy's sitting in drop, and you're just giving them, you're welcoming them into that 15-foot range, with which the analytics say take all those shots you want. But some guys are just good at that. Some guys get comfortable, and some guys can take that head of steam and then go at Tommy, go to the rim, and those type of things. So I think that Kylan looked like the happiest guy in Champaign with the big smile of like, hey, just give me a half second to get back in front. And I agree that he is one of the better in the country when he's at his best, as far as on-ball defense and the physicality he has and keeping guys in front. And it does just seem where Tommy's not full-on selling out in terms of what we saw tonight. He's just kind of showing for a half second, maybe a full second, and then rolling back to the big. And I think that buys some time to get back in front, because they've been having a hard time keeping guys bottled up on drives. They've been beaten so bad on dribble drives, or beaten bad in ball screens. I know that they've talked, and Kylan mentioned too, just kind of the gap defenders, guys off the ball, maybe helping a little bit in the gaps, and really just it's about playing a little bit more team defense and not letting guys get to the rim as much. So, and then I just think the intensity and the effort was there that it hadn't been in a little while. So that was good to see also. But I think that it's encouraging that this is something that, and hearing Tommy discuss it, like they could maybe do it personnel based on who they're going against. There might be a ball handler who doesn't shoot the mid-range all that well, or doesn't be able to capitalize on drops. So they can maybe vary up their coverages, make it be a little unpredictable, make it be something that is just geared towards a matchup, and just kind of makes you a little bit more dynamic defensively.
You mentioned Kylan being one of the happiest guys, and he kind of talked about the change they made defensively, and then we kept following up on it, and it just felt like a finally from Kylan. Like, hey, finally we made an adjustment. But to be fair with Brad, he said, we'd been wanting to do this for a month. We just haven't had our team. Like, Merez Johnson gets hurt, right? So there's not a time to do that. Then Tomislav Ivisic hasn't practiced barely. So he says that's the reason they haven't made this change, because you need the big to gel with the guards and kind of get that going. So he said he deliberated on the plane, had a sleepless night after the Duke loss. And then they decided we have to make a change. And he said that probably helped them take their mind off of everything else, as they were so focused on this change that their minds couldn't go anywhere else. It's like, hey, what are my responsibilities in all of this? And so he said that was part of it, but just that this team needed change. And we all saw it, Derek. They had to change something. And I think it was maybe overdue, but you can understand with some of the injuries and illness, the impact of that. But now it's like, can that spark something? I know Iowa's not good, Derek, but that was their least efficient offensive performance against a high major opponent this season. Illinois, who doesn't force turnovers, and maybe Iowa had something to do with this, but they had 16 turnovers tonight, and that really helped Illinois' offense. They scored a bunch of points off turnovers tonight, got them going in transition, and Iowa really wanted to speed that game up, and Illinois still defended. So Kylan and KJ especially, I just thought they were awesome chasing people. Will Riley had some of those as well, but you can just tell they had more bite to them, right? There was a desperation and intensity from the opening tip-off tonight, and then they build a 19-8 lead. The starters get pulled finally 8 minutes into the game. The bench plays terribly, gives up a 9-0 run. You're thinking, oh no, Derek. But then the starters came back in, and got a 7-point lead at halftime, got back up to double digits in the second half. And outside of that little moment, that 9-0 run by Iowa, Illinois was in full control when its starters were on the court tonight.
Yeah, they were. And to have, I think Dix and Sanford went 3 for 10 combined in the first half. It was disappointing that you weren't up bigger based on the fact that they really hadn't gotten going. And I think that the rebounding was still something, and Brad mentioned in the postgame that he wants to be better. I mean, to get out rebounded tonight against an Iowa team that's not very good on the glass. Not that they just annihilated you in terms of second chance points or anything, but knowing who you're about to face, you got to be able to clean that up and get a little bit more physical around the rim. For the most part, yeah, I think that those guys that you mentioned on the perimeter, Trey White had some moments too of being able to, stick to his guy on the outside and not give up a whole lot there. KJ just looked different tonight. I think a little bit more outwardly in terms of emotion. Joey was trying to figure out, you call it is it the mashed potatoes dance or whatever it was? I don't know.
I think that's the mashed potato, right?
We'll take your word for it.
The guy who was alive in the 50s or 60s when that was a thing.
Yeah, right. That's not you. But he was dancing a little bit pregame, and then just some outward shows of kind of like some
pumping
swagger,
up the crowd.
toughness.
Yeah, I was like,
yeah.
We've missed that. Like, who's been that guy this year? Is there
Right.
been a guy that's been doing that? Like, I thought Kylan would bring some of that, but obviously he's had so many ups and downs. But I was happy to see some of that outward emotion from this team. That there's still fight there, because how could we not question it after the previous 3 games? Right? I thought they showed some fight against Wisconsin, but they clearly weren't the aggressor. They were the better team. They're the more talented team, so they should be tonight. But that wasn't a little thing to see this team come out the aggressor and not like just kind of go into a shell. So I thought in the first 10 minutes we're going to know what this team had, and they still got some fight in them.
Definitely. Yeah, and I think that Will had a couple of effort plays. One to save a ball out of bounds, throw it off the guy, and steal a possession for Illinois was good. To mention the 11-0 spurt for Iowa, though, that's where I felt like maybe you let them off the hook. I worried that a really good start for Illinois, you pull the switch to put Will in there, and you make some scheme changes. I think even offensively, some of Illinois' first couple possessions running that empty side pick and roll of having Tommy roll, because he's been pretty much an exclusive pick and pop guy for the most part. They were really putting pressure on the rim, and you built this nice like 24-11 lead, and then you make the subs and it evaporates. All of a sudden it's a 3-point game, and Iowa gets confidence and is able to hang right back in there. I thought Tommy early in that second half in particular was great. He had like 3 assists by the first media in the second half, and that allowed Illinois to get some momentum. But like you mentioned, and also, Fran said we wanted to play fast, but they kind of just were taking it right back at us, and we weren't making shots, and we're allowing them to play, a higher tempo offensive game, and all of a sudden that lead just ballooned out, and Illinois was able to get that thing done. But yeah, I think it was the number one thing I wanted to look for tonight was just where is this team at in terms of their buy-in, their focus, their effort, their toughness, and beyond the scheme stuff, which we've talked about some possible tweaks that could be made, some needed changes if they were going to pull those switches. But that's what I wanted to see first and foremost to judge the heart of this team, and it was encouraging that they had that in that area.
Because it was a question mark, a fair question mark after losing 79 points over the last 3 games. New starting lineup in this one, the 8th starting lineup in 14 games, which is absolutely crazy. But Will Riley gets put in the starting lineup, his 3rd start. He had started a couple games earlier when KJ was out. But that puts Ben Humrickhouse on the bench, and Ben struggled in that first segment. I think every bench player struggled in that first segment. Did hit 2 threes, so don't let Ben Humrickhouse get hot. Also had a couple steals, a couple rebounds. So I think that was really encouraging for him in that second half. But Brad said this was based on matchups. I was a smaller team. Do you think it's based on matchups, or do you think this is here to stay? Is Will Riley a starter and Ben Humrickhouse coming off the bench, Derek? And how much does it matter?
I think that it does matter in terms of trying to get off the fast starts, because I think it looks like your best lineup. Those guys played well tonight. Brad mentioned the plus minuses across the board between that group of KJ, Kylan, Will, Tommy, that all played a lot of minutes together.
Didn't pull him until 8 minutes in, like which Brad never
Right.
does. He always subs people in before that first media timeout to get his starters a rest. So that was interesting. Sorry to interrupt there, but I just want to mention.
No, you're good. No, and it puts really your three best playmakers on the floor between KJ, Kylan, or KJ, Will, and Tommy. So you got good passers, different guys you can run offense through. And it does put a heavy workload on, like, you can't maybe afford in that next rotation. There might be a drop off, and you might have to just load up the minutes there. Right now, this team can't really afford Tommy to be off the floor all that much. We saw it tonight. He goes off, and it's not even a full on knock on Ben. He's just not a 5, but he kind of has to play your backup 5 as of right now. That is where it gets scary in this upcoming matchup against Michigan.
No foul trouble for Tommy. No foul trouble. Yeah. I'd rather you give up points and then get fouls, because if they have to go to Ben Rickhouse or Kerry Booth, who?
Yeah, and I think with that matchup in particular, you might not even – if Ben was out there, would you have Ben guard Wolf? It might be a situation where Kylan does it because of how Wolf operates on the perimeter, and then you got, Tommy on Vlad. I don't know. I just think that's something that needs to be looked at. I mean, if Kylan can guard Flag, then I wouldn't be surprised if Kylan's going to guard Wolf, even though Wolf is 7 foot. It sounds stupid, but
no, it's crazy. I'm just thinking of the guys that he's guarded the last couple of games. It's like Dylan Harper, John Tonje, Cooper Flag, Peyton Sanford, and potentially 7 foot Danny Wolf.
He guarded Barnhizer earlier in the year. I mean, yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. Insane.
But I think it matters in terms of maybe a big picture, and this may just be more of a, I don't know what the right way to say it is, but you're kind of just putting your stock in your most important players. This team's going to go as far as, I think Kylan's important. I think Trey had a nice game, but Will and Kasparis and Tommy are really your 3 feature guys, I feel like, and 3 guys that are your biggest maybe X factors. And I think having those guys play together and to play as much as they can together is a big deal. So I like that Brad went there. I wrote in the game thread that I would have made that switch. I just didn't know that Brad would pull it, and I did like that he just he went for it.
Yeah, it's been nice to see Trey White and Kylan Boswell the last 2 games be the veterans that you want him to be physical. So to get Trey alive offensively, I don't like that he only had 2 rebounds tonight. Rebounding was a huge problem for Illinois. Out-rebounded 36-31 tonight against the worst rebounding team in the Big Ten. So that's becoming an issue without Moraz Johnson out there, and you're smaller, right, when you get Will Riley, but he had 7 rebounds tonight. I thought Kasparis was an animal on the glass. I just want to mention him because the stat line isn't crazy, right? 9 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists. But I just thought his effort was insane tonight. Defensively, I thought he was the best rebounder, 4 offensive rebounds for him, and he only had 1 turnover in 37 minutes. So shout out to him for playing pretty well there. Offensively, Derek, what did you think? I mean, is there anything that can carry over that can kind of have momentum into this Michigan game? I mean, 9 of 29 from 3, 6 of 15 in the second half is great for Illinois. They had some open ones. Tommy, Pat spraying into those corners. But obviously, Michigan's a much different team with those bigs. And they're just a better defensive team than Iowa, who's the worst defensive team basically in the Big Ten. So is there anything offensively that you think can carry over?
Hopefully it's KJ taking better care of the ball, because if there's anything that Iowa does well on defense this year, it is turn people over at times. When they played Michigan, they turned them over, I think, 17 times. Rutgers, when they went on the road and beat the Scarlet Knights, they turned them over 15 times. So they were 5th in Big Ten play and turnover rate defensively. Illinois had a really good game in terms of taking care of it outside of some Will Riley turnovers, which was really the bulk of that in terms of giveaways. But
yeah, season low, 5 turnovers, least against a Big Ten team, a high major team, and Will had 3 of them. So
yeah, I think varying up where the offense comes from in terms of initiating. I think they started the game where Kylan was on the ball and they worked their way into the empty side pick and roll with Tommy and KJ, and then they had Tommy do his facilitating from the top of the key with cutting. I thought Kylan and Will are really good cutting options off of the perimeter, and Trey can be one of those too. I think that's something that is there with Tommy seeing the floor and having really good touch over the top, kind of throwing that fade route a little bit, down towards the basket like a quarterback. But and then we know that Will can create off the balance and show some good composure. I am just impressed. I know that he gave away some tonight, but on the whole, I think he's grown in terms of being able to not get too sped up off the dribble and make some plays there. So I thought they did run. I heard Tyler calling out some plays from the bench. Thought they ran some sets. Thought they got a couple of different wrinkles, and this was really the response that fans wanted in terms of the effort, in terms of the shifts, the starting lineup change
something, right? And they did. They changed the lineup.
Yeah.
They changed some of their defensive coverage, and they changed a little bit of their offense with a few more sets. But here's the good thing, Derek, is they have 4 days leading into Michigan. So they got some time off here, 3 days of practice. Now, how hard are they going to go tomorrow? I'm not sure, but they have 3 days of being together and being healthy and not sick. And then after that, you have 5 days until Purdue. So it's the most practice they've had in a long time. Plus they're healthy on top of it outside of Merez. So you hope they can build on that and make some more little tweaks that maybe they haven't been able to.
For sure. And yeah, just to be able to really lock in on what those adjustments are and potentially can be within a game. And again, like kind of the defensive stuff, if it's kind of applying new wrinkles to different personnel and game plans and being able to grow with that in terms of, making fewer mistakes within it. And obviously whenever Merez gets worked back in, we won't know, Brad mentions getting him back possibly by the Big Ten tournament. When is his first availability to go out there and practice and to be involved in some of this stuff? I can't answer that obviously yet, but
yeah, he's still got his cast on. So
yeah,
Brad said Big Ten tournament potentially. So I would imagine, I don't
maybe after the regular season finale.
I mean, the top hope would be maybe Purdue, but he said Big Ten tournament, so I'll hold him to that.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of like practicing, like any kind of like lead up to a practice, but that might be when he can just get on the court for anything. But yeah, I think that it allows the coaching staff to do what they do, is try to get growth and try to get familiarity with some new things that they do, and just try to work on some things, try to get them settled in, try to get them confident. And that's, they haven't been afforded that, where they had the breaks in December. They had a week before bragging rights. They had a week after bragging rights. Usually there's one of those within Big Ten play. We haven't had it because of the Duke game.
Yeah.
So up until now, you're starting to get a space in the schedule. And I'm glad Brad said tonight he doesn't want to. We will hold him to this. Not going to hear me say anything about sickness. And he didn't mention injury, but hopefully we can throw that in there too. None of that stuff. They're going to get healthier, and they're going to be able to get in practice and work on some stuff. So we don't have to use that as an excuse or evaluate how much that is or isn't one. And that's another advantage of practice here coming up.
Yeah. We said afterwards we should have stood up and just slow clapped when he said, I'm not going to bring it up anymore, because while it is legit, it's in the past, and it's happened, and it's happened to a lot of teams. Iowa didn't have Owen Freeman. So like that's going to happen. Teams have players get hurt. All right, let's talk about what's next with this Michigan game. We'll talk about the NCAA tournament. We'll talk about Iowa as well. But first, I want to tell you about one of our great sponsors, Factor. If you're ready to optimize your nutrition this year, Factor has chef-made gourmet meals that make eating well easy. They're dietitian approved and ready to heat and eat in 2 minutes, so you can fuel right and feel great no matter what life throws at you. I like these. You just put them in the microwave for 2 minutes and have a good, healthy meal. You can lose up to 8 pounds in 8 weeks with Factor Keto meals too, based on a randomized controlled clinical trial where Factor Keto results will vary depending on diet and exercise. They have over 40 options across 8 dietary preferences on the menu each week. It's easy to pick meals tailored to your goals. You can choose from references like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, or Keto. and they can help you feel your best all day long with some wholesome smoothies, breakfast, grab-and-go snacks, and more add-ons. So reach your goals this year with ingredients you can trust and convenience that you can't beat. Eat smart with Factor. So get started at factormeals.com/factorpodcast and use code factorpodcast to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code factorpodcast at factormeals.com/factorpodcast to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. All right, Derek, my big question or my statement would be, now do it again, right? Like, this was a feel-good win. But this game you should win. Like, Iowa is very vulnerable right now. They're fighting just to get into the Big Ten tournament and not be one of those 3 teams left out of it. It feels like, and we can dive into this a little bit, this is the last legs of Fran McCaffrey in this program. But you came out the aggressor. You did it. Now I want to see it again. Now I want to see this stuff go against a good team and have a chance to win at Michigan on the road, a top 25 team. Then we'd start to feel like, okay, this team is building some momentum. So that's what I want to see. Go do it again.
100%. Yeah, and you got to be able to, for a team that, up until recently, we've talked obviously about it just being in a terrible rut, but even who they've been over the last, really over the course of the years, an inconsistent team. And can you shake some of that and try to string some things together, make sure the effort is still sustained at a really high level, that you can come out and get off to a good start once again. Yes, being on the road, and that's obviously a different challenge, and being able to handle a much tougher personnel grouping. I mean, Iowa's front court is nothing to worry about with Freeman out. Michigan's an entirely different story, and without Merez, I mean, man, you can't have Tommy get in foul trouble. He's going to have to guard a really, experienced and good back to the basket player in Golden. And
Vlad's a monster, man.
Yeah,
he's a monster. Like, I love how aggressive he is. So that's going to be tough for Tommy.
He's physical, and that's something that Tommy's going to hopefully. If you're Illinois, you're trying to get him feeling more and more strong. I know he's talked about playing underweight after being sick and trying to get back to feeling as strong as he can. And then Wolf is just so skilled for being 7 foot. I mean, the fact that they can run him in like a point center, and he can pull up, he can pass, he can do a whole bunch of different things. They really play well off of each other, and Illinois doesn't have that matchup with him, which very few teams do. I mean, if you had Merez, you would. So that's the biggest thing. Michigan's guards, Trey Donaldson's a good player. Outside of that, they don't scare me a whole lot. I'm not scared of.
No,
I would be scared of Amari Burnett.
They turn it over. They don't shoot it all that well. Like, late in games, man. Like, they really struggle late in games. So those 2 bigs are awesome. They're Danny Wolf is first team All Big Ten. Vlad Golden's probably second team All Big Ten. But those 2 guys carry Michigan for most of the time. Like, Burnett can shoot and he can get hot every once in a while. Donaldson is capable of going off, but they're also capable of, really struggling. So the guards have to be really good and really help with those bigs. So it's going to be really interesting to see what Illinois does. Do they just let, Tommy guard the yard with Vlad, or do they double? Who's guarding Danny Wolf, who's one of the most unique players I've ever seen at 7 foot with the ability to be like a point center. And just so smooth, and he gets after the rebounding, and I don't know a comp for him. Like, it's just, I was asking Michael Tuip at that the other day, and I don't know, but that's a tough matchup without Merez. If you had Merez, man, I'd be itching for this matchup, right? Because you got those 2 guys, plus I think you have a huge advantage at guard if your guards are clicking like they are. So yeah, without Merez, it's an interesting battle, and it'll be an interesting scheme for Illinois.
Yeah, and it might take multiple guys to try to throw at him, and that could be Kylan, that could be Ben, it could be Trey. I had a thought, if you're going to think about the 2-man game, a Ben Tommy, you could switch that. That would be something you could do. I just don't really want Ben to be out on the perimeter with Danny, who's not maybe going to be the shifty guy that you would expect to just blow right by Ben ultimately, but
Trey's the better matchup there, right?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Ultimately, I wouldn't be surprised if it is, Kylan trying to force him to not allow him to get to his spots off the dribble, and then if he tries to back him down, you got to send a double.
Yeah.
And boy,
I
the span of
Kylan did it against Cooper for first
yeah,
half, right? So
yeah,
maybe that is the play. Maybe it's just get into him, make him feel uncomfortable, and try to force him into some turnovers because he does that at times. So he'll turn it over.
yeah, for sure. Can you imagine if the span of a week, Brad does hedging, does gap help, and doubles the post, or doubles another guy? Like, wow, that would be
Desperate times, Derek. Desperate times.
I mean, it'd be exciting. I think if you're an Illini fan to have some versatility to be able to do some different things defensively. Of course, I'm making a little bit of a joke as far as that goes, but
No, but like
they have been stubborn and pretty vanilla for a lot of the time
for this season, right? And maybe some of that is due to the injuries and illness, right? Like that he's been talking about. But like, I think Brad is willing to sound stubborn. He hasn't really been stubborn in his career, right? When it comes to scheme, when it comes to style of play, like he's done those things. So I think he's been trying to be the lightning rod for the fan base with some of the things he said. And I also think he thinks, can his team handle some of the criticism he would have in the media? We've talked about that, but he hasn't been a stubborn guy in his career. Like he has changed a lot of things. I mean, think of the way he first guarded, and then Kofi comes in here and they change it. And then, last year with their offensive change, like I think that's been a big strength of his adaptability. So it's really refreshing to finally see some of that again, Derek.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I agree with it. And that's a good point. He has been somebody that, especially once he has a good sample size of something to see that this isn't working, that there is a need for a shift. He's usually been that guy that hasn't been afraid, especially in the middle of the season. I mean, there might be coaches that you're this late in February, you got 3 regular season games left. And you're like, we can't change now. We can't change our identity. We can't change what we do. And I do credit Brad for on a short prep to just throw that at their guys in a must-win game. And obviously they responded. So you credit the players for handling it well. And hopefully you just can build on that because this has gotten to a point, prior to tonight, we talk about and poke fun at Iowa's defense through the years. This was the worst defense in high major since the start of February, according to the metrics. So it was a step in the right direction, and it was a needed tweak. And it was a good coaching job by Brad for this game and for the game plan. And hopefully it's something they can use to their advantage going forward too.
I've seen a few bracketologists say it that Illinois is now a lock for the NCAA tournament. I don't want to overlook this, Derek. 5 straight NCAA tournaments would have been 6 if not for COVID. So if this is the down season, like that's an improvement from where Illinois is. And I know the bar has been raised, but I still don't want to lose sight of that because this would have been one of the highest seeded John Gross teams, right? Like Bruce Weber was just trying to get a team like this. So I just want to not lose sight of that. Illinois continues to make NCAA tournaments and give yourself a chance. And maybe if this team, again, we got to see it again the next couple of weeks. You got 2 great opportunities to prove it against Michigan and Purdue. But if you do win one of those 2 games or both of those games and win a game or 2 in the Big Ten tournament and you get Merez Johnson back, and this team is capable of winning a game or 2, right? So, like, you just keep getting bites at the apple, and every once in a while you make a run that you don't expect. Like Tom Izzo, some of his most talented teams lose in the first weekend and then finds a way to get to a Final Four with another radar team. So just getting those bites at the apple, it's a big change for this program from where it was 8 years ago.
No, I mean, it makes Selection Sunday special every time you see your name called. And
even if it's a 9, right?
Yeah. And that's part of the fun of it, right? And you have the lead up to, if you're an optimistic fan, you can try to convince yourself of why you will be able to pull that upset and be able to, win that first game and then beat a 1 seed. And it's happened. Those type of things happen a lot. And the
Arkansas 2 years ago is a team we've compared this one to, right?
Exactly. I mean, North Carolina wasn't North Carolina like a 9 seed? FAU was a 9 seed, I think, when they went on their Final Four run. Yeah, I think that's, or maybe even 11. I can't remember.
11, I think is right.
But yeah, I think that to have, the hope of and I know we set the bar, or I shouldn't say we, Brad talked a lot about Final Four and everything, but like you said, I mean, even if it's just string 2 wins together, get to a second weekend, that would be a huge deal to go back-to-back Sweet 16s. And you got to be in the tournament to have that crack at it, right? And anything can happen once you get there. And we'll see what this next couple of weeks have in store. So that's exciting. Not to go on some full-on tangent about it, but for the Brad critics, I would say this: the difference between Brad and some other coaches in the Big Ten recently on their down points, the difference between Brad and Tom Crean, who won a couple Big Tens, was a 1 seed and got bounced in the Sweet 16. When Crean went down, they missed the tournament.
Yeah.
They missed the tournament and they had a big slip in recruiting. When Mark Turgeon went down, it was below 500, missed the tournament. So that's where he differs from some of these other coaches that you could maybe use the tournament success against him, or just, have you had enough runs? Have you had enough high points, or whatever you want to have in terms of the conversation about, about
until
the
last
lower
year,
points. That's what Brad has, that's different. When a down year during this stretch is still getting to the tournament, which is something to be said for that for sure.
Yeah, our boy Brad Evans has Illinois as an 8 seed right now. So I'll tell you what, you win the next 2 games, you're going to go way higher than that, because they have a good resume, and then you had 2 wins like that. So, I mean, I would bet on this team to do that based on what we've seen, but if you can get one of them, you're feeling a lot better about yourself heading into the Big Ten tournament. Derek, Iowa basketball and Illinois basketball are 2 of the best programs in the Big Ten. Iowa missed the tournament last year. They're missing the tournament this year. They don't have a Luka Garza or the Murray brothers anymore. Wieskamp and Sanford, they've had guys like that. I think Josh Dix is a hell of a player. But yeah, it's not happening right now for Iowa. So, I mean, it'll be interesting to see if Fran McCaffrey is there next year. There's already rumors about Darren DeVries. Would he go there? I think Ben McCollum right down the road at Drake makes a lot of sense. Fran McCaffrey's done a great job at Iowa. I think of the players they've had, they just haven't had the tournament run. I don't think he's ever been past first weekend, right? But like the players he's evaluated, developed, has been phenomenal. They were one of the best teams in the Big Ten for a couple of years there, but that program has had a pretty precipitous drop the last couple of years.
Yeah, no, he's done a good job for sure, and been a team that's, a lot of these years in the last 5 has been a top third, up in that top 5 of the Big Ten type of battle. And there have been times where, post Luka, you thought, oh boy, they're about to take a real step back here. And then the Murray twins show up and they have a great year. And when they won that Big Ten tournament, it was the year after Illinois did. I'm like, man, that team is smoking hot going into the NCAA. Wouldn't want to see them, and they lose to Richmond in the first round. And then you're starting, maybe you don't want to win the Big Ten tournament. Illinois and Iowa fans shaking hands on that one. But yeah, some of the recruiting evals and development, Luka's a 3-star out of the DC area, and the Murray brothers aren't super highly touted coming out of high school either, and Sanford and on down the line. So not getting to a second weekend is certainly a big blemish. And they were a 2 seed the year of the COVID year, and they lose in the second round and those type of things. But they have just lacked the ability to recruit well enough to be a big enough player in the portal. It's not a program that, at least as far as, as an outsider, has, maybe the best resources, the best NIL. So it can be tough.
Yeah. You wonder if they're going to get hurt more in this era, because football is obviously going to get a lot of resources for them, but basketball comparatively, it's like women's basketball feels like it's, getting way more attention there, which I understand. But, Tom Davis was a great coach. Steve Alford had some success. But, after the Licklider experience, I mean, for Fran to do what he did and to do it as long as he's done, right? Like, I know the tournament success isn't there, but 15 years. There's, 2 coaches that have been there longer in the Big Ten, and Tom Izzo and Matt Painter right now. And he's only got Matt Painter's only got a couple years on him. So he's been a stalwart in this league, and he's, got an over 500 record in this league. So I think it's been a nice, really good tenure for him, but it just feels like it's stale right now. So In the Big Ten, it feels like Indiana's obviously open. Feels like Iowa's the most likely to be open. I mean, Minnesota could be in there, even though Ben Johnson, just some bad luck there last year. But it feels like that job's going to be open. And I wonder where Fran would go from there. Is he going to coach again? Is he retire? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't have to coach again, obviously. He could be a guy that packs it up and has a solid career. I don't know. I don't know what he's going to have planned. His family, his sons have moved on through the program. They'll kind of wait out another one as far as that goes. It does feel like Iowa is at a point where it'd be very – yeah, it seems time, right? And I think the fan base probably is ready for it as well. But yeah, you do appreciate what he's done, and we have a special appreciation because he's a big part of a rivalry. It was so fun to cover. One of the best parts of the last 5 years or whatever. We've been doing it longer, but of this window for Brad Underwood, and then one of the key highlights has been the Illinois Iowa rivalry, which was spectacular. And ever since we talked about it after the game, you had the stat as far as, is it 7 of 8 or 8 of 9?
8 of 9, which is amazing because that's during the last 2 years Iowa hasn't been great, and Iowa got one last year, right? Like this was during the Murray Garza years that Illinois started this streak. They started in 2019-20. They lost at Iowa City the Jaden Epps, Matt Meyer year, and Illinois won 3 straight. So it was 2 years ago they lost, but I mean those were the Murray brothers and Garza where they won 5 straight, including the big win right before COVID, and then the win to clinch the Big Ten championship. And some of those battles, I mean, you think of Chin Coleman walking off the court and getting into it with Fran and all that. Like, it's been awesome.
The Connor McCaffrey, DeMonte Williams forehead
kiss, basically.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Not a kind one at that. And you had Illinois beat them in that Big Ten tournament in Indy, which is a hotly contested game. Never forget Jordan Bohannon going on Twitter and say, "Look forward to seeing you guys have that banner taken down," which, of course, got a lot of good reaction. Very mature thing for him to say. What
a great. Sorry, the Hunter Dickinsons and Jordan Bohannons, I love having them in college basketball. Like, just these guys who are so easy to hate. Like,
yeah.
But they embrace that. Like, I love those heels. Like, it just makes Big Ten basketball better. And when those guys hang around for a couple of years, that's phenomenal. Like DeMonte and Connor going at it, like back to back, just great heels for each other.
Yeah, no, the casting was perfect. You had the stars, you had the role guys, you had the villains and some trolls, some guys that were trolls. Coleman Hawkins was a troll.
Perfect.
Obviously not saying that he's not a good player because he was, but he was a very willing troll guy. And those are key characters to fill out the whole story. And then when you have
Io saying, I hate them. They hate us.
Exactly. It's beautiful. So, but yeah, post handshake kerfluffle, to steal a line from Joey Wagner, 8-1 for Illinois. That's pretty good. Pretty good.
And they are. I wrote this earlier, so I got to remind myself. I got to go back to my notes here, but they got a pretty good run against Michigan here, right? They have won 8 straight against Michigan, including 4 straight at the Chrysler Center. Of course, Juwan Howard is no longer coaching that program, and Hunter Dickinson is no longer there. Coleman keeping that streak alive against Hunter in the Big 12, but it's a little bit different of a program now without Juwan there.
I don't know what the schedules are for Kansas and Kansas State. We need a Coleman Hawkins and Hunter Dickinson watch party. I need that live streamed, or those guys need to show up in Ann Arbor or something. That would be just beautiful. But
I hope they end up in the same professional league, wherever that is. The NBA, the G League, the Spain. I got to see those guys continue to go at it.
That'd be cool. That'd be cool for sure. But
they deserve each other.
Definitely. Different characters in this one, and Dusty May has done a fabulous job. Man, what the tone around this program and the fan base would be if Illinois could, flip that switch and go and turn this one into a win at Ann Arbor. another program that Illinois fans have no love lost for. Will get people pretty excited as you start to. Well, it'll be March, right? By the time we're at Sunday
March
in
2nd.
Ann Arbor.
Yeah, happy birthday to my brother Brad Werner on March 2nd, by the way.
Yeah.
But I do want to say this: it's a 2:45 tip off CBS. What a great opportunity to show the country that you're back. Like you can, like, hey, don't. We had those injuries and illnesses. We got down on ourselves a little bit, got beat up, but we're still here. We're still fighting. We can still be a factor. Like, because if you beat Michigan and Purdue to end the season, all of a sudden people are going to say, look out for this 7 or 8 seed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Probably a 7 or 6 at that point. Then you go into the Big Ten tournament with some momentum, but people start telling you about that. Like I can see Seth Davis. If you win these next 2 games or win a Big Ten tournament game, like all of a sudden he's like, look out for this team because they went through these injuries and illness, but they're playing better now. But yeah, like it's a 2:45 tip off on CBS. You got that big opportunity. But if people are not going to be in Ann Arbor like you and I are, Derek, I really encourage them to show up at State Farm Center Sunday, 12:30 tip off for Illini women's basketball. It's their senior day, and Makara Cook's not playing, but it's her senior day, and she's made a huge impact on this program. Then you have Genesis Bryant, Kendall Bostic, Bryn Shoup Hill, Dahlia McKenzie, who've just taken that program basically from 6 feet under into now they're fighting for a number 4 seed in the Big Ten tournament, going to make the NCAA tournament. So I just want to put that out there. If you guys can show up, I'd love to see this place as full as it's ever been for Illini women's basketball because those seniors meant so much to that program. And they're really fun to watch. And it's a huge game for them against Michigan because if they win that and they get some help, I think, from Ohio State beating a couple other teams, they can get a double bye in the Big Ten tournament and potentially move up the seed line. So just a huge opportunity. And for the kids, it's fun. Like it's a cool environment to come to. It's a little bit more relaxed than some of the men's games because there's always on edge here. But I just want to encourage people to do that. So it's a big Sunday for Illinois basketball and a big Sunday for Brad Underwood's team too.
Big time, yeah. Sean has done a phenomenal job, and this program, where they've come from, is a big, big deal. And appreciating the players that have played that huge role in bringing it out of just the depths of where it was, pre-Shauna Green and everything. So, I endorse that as well, and look forward to seeing what they can do against Michigan and obviously into the postseason, which, man, not to, rag on Brad or anything, but I love that, Shauna's approach to the adversity and to the injuries and everything, just not to use it as something that's going to hold them down. They've pushed forward, and they've been a fun team to watch. And obviously it'd be great to have both those programs humming into postseason play.
Yeah, both those teams in the NCAA tournament. Again, like it's
get used to that.
Yeah, you can get something that's kind of nice around here. All right, that'll do it for us. We appreciate everybody watching live on the YouTube channel. We love you guys. Hit that like button, subscribe to us, hit that notifications bell. And if you're listening on the podcast, give us a follow, rating, review wherever your podcast. We'll have plenty more. I got player grades coming up later tonight, and Derek will have his takeaways from this one. I know Joey's writing about the defensive adjustments they wrote as well. So when you wake up at Illini Inquirer, you should see plenty on this Illini basketball win. But everybody have a great day. Take care of each other. We'll talk to you next time right here on the Illini Inquirer podcast.